Deep in the Alaskan wilderness sits North Hollow, a town so geographically isolated that its residents must endure deep winter darkness. For months on end, the sun simply does not rise, creating an environment that exacts a heavy psychological toll on anyone living there. North Hollow is governed by a behavioral anomaly shared by every resident, a strict universal curfew that triggers in the dead of night. This chart shows the precise timeline of that curfew. At exactly 1:10 a.m., a systematic power blackout hits the entire grid. 1 minute later, at 1:11 a.m., the absolute prohibition begins. No one is allowed to look out any window. Enter Elena, a nurse who recently relocated to the town. Like anyone from the outside, she assumed this curfew was nothing more than collective, irrational paranoia. To her, it was just people scared of the dark. A survival system built entirely on unquestioned local lore works perfectly, right up until a logical outsider decides to test its boundaries. On Elena's very first night, the town's grid failed exactly on schedule. At 1:10 a.m., her room and every house around her went completely dark. Then began what we can categorize as the entity's primary hunting mechanism. It starts as a localized, seemingly benign physical disruption against the glass, a light tapping. This waveform visualizes the audio stimulus transitioning from chaotic winter storm noise into a deliberate, rhythmic sequence. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap, a mathematical shift signaling intelligence. Immediately, an external failsafe triggered, and Elena received a text directive: don't look outside. The entity relies on a psychological trap, presenting an anomaly, and waiting for the victim to provide the voluntary engagement it needs to proceed. Driven by skeptical curiosity, Elena dismissed the warnings. She approached the window and pulled back the thick curtain, breaking the physical barrier to look into the pitch-black winter night. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, the shape of the entity materialized. It stood unnaturally tall, with emaciated, elongated proportions, and where its face should have been, there was only a complete, empty blackness. This line of sight creates a bidirectional circuit between the human and the entity. In this ecosystem, the act of observing the entity forces an immediate and equal observation in return. This circuit was confirmed the moment a second text message appeared on her phone. It saw you. The physical consequences of this visual breach were instantaneous. The tapping on the exterior glass stopped. A few seconds later, the distinct sound of slow, heavy footsteps echoed from the dark interior of Elena's locked bedroom. The act of looking outside provides the exact invitation the entity requires to step inside, effectively dismantling the house's defensive perimeter. The next morning, neighbors arrived to inspect the aftermath. They found Elena's front door unlocked and the interior of the house completely vacant. The mirror in the bedroom held a final trace of the night's events. Scrawled into the frost were 2 words: she looked. Then there was the spatial anomaly outside. Investigators found a single footprint in the fresh snow, but it didn't belong to Elena, and it didn't lead toward the house. It originated from inside the threshold, pointing outward into the town. The curfew rules exist specifically to prevent residents from granting the entity permission to enter. If you hear unexplained tapping on your window in the dead of night, ignore it. Those sounds are not inquiries for entry. They are targeted traps, and acknowledging them might be exactly what invites the darkness in.